There is a special kind of cruelty that only family can make sound reasonable. They can take the years you gave them, rename them selfishness, repeat the lie at dinners, weddings, funerals, and holiday tables until even you start wondering if showing up was the mistake. And then one day the truth arrives in a box small enough to fit in both hands. This is that kind of story. My name is Susie Teal, I'm 34 years old, and I work as a hospice nurse in Portland, Oregon. 3 weeks before my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, I found out they had been telling everyone I abandoned my dying grandmother. Not quietly, not privately, everyone. My mother had said it in the family group chat. My sister had repeated it to cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. My father had apparently told people I walked away because caring for an old woman was too hard for me. And then my cousin sent me the screenshot that changed everything. She is not invited, my mother had written. If she shows up, her father will handle it. I sat at my kitchen table for almost 10 minutes staring at those words. Her father will handle it. That was how they talked about me. Not like a daughter. Not like someone who had given up 4 years of her life, like a problem at the door. What they did not know was that I had already booked the flight. Because 4 years earlier, before my grandmother died, she placed a small gold box in my hands, looked me straight in the eye, and made me promise to deliver it to my mother on one specific night. Not at the funeral, not in private, not when it was convenient. On my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. Inside that box was her wedding band, a sealed letter, and the one truth my family had spent years burying. So I flew almost 3,000 miles with that box on my lap. And before the night was over, my father would knock it onto the floor in front of 70 guests. My grandmother's ring would roll across the ballroom. And the one woman in that room who had actually seen what I did for Nana would pick it up and say the sentence that finally cracked my family's lie open. "Marian, that is your mother's wedding band." But to understand why that moment destroyed them, you have to understand what my family had turned me into before I ever walked into that room. For 4 years, I had been the missing daughter. The cold one. The dramatic one. The one who left her parents when they needed her most. That was the version of me my mother carried around like a polished stone. She kept it in her purse, in her church conversations, in her holiday phone calls, in the soft sigh she gave whenever someone asked, "Have you heard from Susie?" "No," she would say, "not really. You know how she is." And people did know because my family had made sure of it. My sister Tessa knew how to tell the story best. She had always been good at turning herself into the reasonable person in any room. Tessa could insult you and make it sound like concern. She could steal credit and make it sound like leadership. She could abandon responsibility and make it sound like practicality. According to her, when our grandmother got sick, everyone had tried their best. But I had made it impossible. I had moved into Nana's house, pushed people away, controlled the visits, created tension, and then disappeared when the family needed unity. That was the word she liked, unity. It sounded better than guilt. The truth was uglier and much simpler. 6 years before that anniversary party, my grandmother, Alina Vale, started forgetting things. Not the sweet, harmless kind of forgetting people laugh about at Sunday dinners. Not "where did I put my glasses?" or "what was that neighbor's name?" It began with a pot left burning on the stove until the kitchen filled with smoke. Then she called me by my mother's name and cried when I corrected her. Then she fell in the hallway and stayed on the floor for 2 hours because she couldn't remember where the phone was. That was when the family meeting happened. I still remember the kitchen table. My parents' house outside Logan, Utah. A yellow legal pad in front of Tessa. My father rubbing his thumb over the handle of his coffee mug. My mother staring out the window like if she didn't look at the conversation directly, she would not be responsible for it. Tessa had driven in from Boise wearing a cream blazer and that clean, efficient expression people use when they already know they are going to win. She had spreadsheets. She always had spreadsheets when she wanted cruelty to look organized. "Nana's house is worth more than we thought," she said, tapping the paper with her pen. My mother flinched a little at the word worth, but she didn't say anything. Tessa continued. "There's a memory care facility in Brigham City. It's not fancy, but it's clean. If we sell the farmhouse, the proceeds cover the care and there will be enough left to help Mom and Dad stabilize retirement." Stabilize retirement. That was how she said it. Not sell Nana's home. Not take the place where she had buried 2 dogs, planted 40 years of peonies, and kept my grandfather's boots beside the mudroom door long after he died. Stabilize retirement. I asked one question. Who is going to visit her? The room went quiet. Tessa blinked at me as if I had asked who was going to hand-stitch the curtains. "We will all visit when we can," she said. "When?" "Susie, don't start. I'm asking a real question." When? Once a week, once a month? Who is going to sit with her when she gets scared? Who is going to make sure she eats? Who is going to notice if they miss her medication? My father set his mug down. The facility has staff. I looked at him. Nana is not a file you can transfer. Tessa sighed, leaning back in her chair. This is exactly why these conversations are impossible with you. You make everything emotional. She is our grandmother. It is emotional. No, Tessa said, and there was the sharpness underneath. You make it about proving you love people more than everybody else. That sentence stayed with me for years, not because it was true, because it revealed what she was afraid of. If I stayed, then someone would have to admit staying was possible. If I did the work, then someone would have to admit the work had been avoided. And that was the part my family could not forgive me for. Not that I left, that I showed up. A week later, I gave notice at my hospital job in Portland. My supervisor asked if I was sure. I said yes before I knew whether I was. I packed my apartment into my old blue Subaru, ended a lease I could barely afford to break, and drove back to Utah with 2 suitcases, a box of nursing books, and a stupid amount of hope. I thought my family would at least be relieved. I thought my mother might cry and say thank you. I thought my father might help me move the heavy things. Instead, my mother said, "You're being dramatic, but I suppose someone has to do it." Tessa gave me 3 weeks. She actually said that. 3 weeks, maybe a month. She told our Aunt Sylvia over the phone, not realizing I had walked into the room. Then she'll realize she can't build an identity around being a martyr. I didn't answer. At the time, I still believed silence was dignity. Later, I learned silence is also where other people plant lies. Living with Nana was not beautiful in the way people imagine sacrifice is beautiful. It was not soft music and warm light through curtains. It was body odor and pill organizers. It was waking at 2:17 a.m. because she was standing in the kitchen in her nightgown, shaking, convinced someone had stolen her baby. It was changing sheets before sunrise and pretending not to notice that she was humiliated. It was convincing a woman who once ran an entire farm that the stranger in the mirror was her. It was hiding the knobs from the stove. It was learning which tone of voice did not frighten her. It was washing her hair in the sink because showers made her panic. It was holding her hand through confusion so deep I sometimes felt like we were both underwater. And then there were the clear days. Those were almost worse. On clear days, Nana knew exactly what I had lost. She would watch me fold laundry at the foot of her bed and say, "You should be living your life, Suzette." She was the only person who called me Suzette. I would smile and say, "I am living my life." She would look at me with those pale gray eyes that had seen too much to be fooled. "No," she would say gently, "you are keeping me company while mine finishes." What do you say to that? You say, "Do you want tea?" You say, "Let's sit outside." You say anything except the truth, which is that some kinds of love are too expensive to explain to people who are keeping receipts in the wrong currency. My boyfriend at the time, Adrian, tried for the first year. He really did. He visited twice. He fixed the back porch step, brought groceries, sat with Nana while I showered. But distance makes even good love tired, and caregiving makes you unavailable in ways people don't see until they start resenting you for it. By the second year, our calls got shorter. By the third, he told me he had met someone. He cried harder than I did. I think I had been grieving him in small pieces for months. Tessa sent flowers when she heard, not to comfort me, to prove she was kind. The card said, "Thinking of you during this difficult time." As if the difficult time had happened to me randomly. As if she had not been standing at the kitchen table when I chose it because no one else would. My parents visited Nana 4 times in the first year, twice in the second, once in the third, never in the last 6 months. My mother always had a reason. The drive was too much. Dad's knee was acting up. The weather looked bad. She couldn't bear to see Nana like that. That last one was the closest thing to honesty she ever gave me. She couldn't bear it, so I bore it. I bore the doctor appointments, the bathing, the wandering, the fear, the dying, and then after it was done, they punished me for knowing what they had avoided. Nana died on a Tuesday morning in April with rain tapping against the bedroom window. Not in a facility, not under fluorescent lights, not alone. She died in her own bed under the quilt her mother made, with my hand wrapped around hers and the smell of lavender lotion on her skin. Her last clear sentence had come 3 days earlier. I had been changing the pillowcase, and she watched me with that strange sharpness that sometimes returned right before the end, as if the soul briefly stood up inside the body and looked around. "Suzette," she whispered, "I'm here. Don't let them make you small after I'm gone." I froze with the clean pillowcase in my hands. "What do you mean?" She looked toward the closet. "The cedar box. I knew the one. It sat on the top shelf, the box we were never allowed to touch as children. Dark wood, brass latch, faint smell of cloves. I brought it to her. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a smaller gold box wrapped in tissue, a sealed envelope, and a folded document with a notary stamp. I didn't reach for anything until she nodded. "This goes to your mother," she said, "on her 40th anniversary." I stared at her. "That's 4 years from now." "I know what year it is," she said, and for one moment she sounded so much like herself that I almost laughed. "Nana, why then?" "Because people listen better when they are busy being proud." I still didn't understand. She pressed the gold box into my hands. Inside it, I later learned, was her wedding band. The ring she had worn for 52 years, the ring my grandfather placed on her hand in a courthouse when they had $12 between them. The envelope was addressed to my mother in Nana's crooked handwriting. The notarized page was clipped to the back. Not a will, not money, not property. Something worse for my family? A witness statement. A document saying Nana had asked me to care for her, had not been isolated, had refused facility placement while she was still legally competent, and had wanted the family to know that I had honored her wishes. At the time, I didn't read any of it. I only saw the sealed envelope and the way Nana's fingers closed over mine. "Promise me," she said. "I promise." "No funeral," she whispered. "No soft room. Marion will cry at a funeral and learn nothing." Marion was my mother. I swallowed hard. "On the anniversary." "On the anniversary," I repeated. She smiled. "Good girl." 3 days later, she was gone. At the funeral, my family behaved beautifully. That was the first thing that made me angry. Not dramatically, not loudly. Just a slow, cold anger watching them stand beside her casket with tissues in their hands, accepting condolences from people who assumed grief and duty had belonged equally to all of us. My mother leaned against my father. Tessa gave a speech. She spoke about Nana's strength, Nana's kitchen, Nana's lessons, Nana's devotion to family. She did not mention the 4 years. She did not mention the nights. She did not mention that in the last 6 months of Nana's life, she had sent exactly 2 texts. "How is she today? And can you send me the recipe for her peach preserves?" At the reception, I stood by the coffee urn with a paper plate I never ate from. My mother came up beside me. She did not say thank you. She said, "I hope you understand why people felt shut out." I turned slowly. "What?" She kept her voice low because there were people nearby. "You took over everything, Susie. You made it so hard for anyone else to be involved." I remember the exact sound the urn made behind me, that tiny metallic click as it heated. I remember because my mind grabbed onto it to keep from breaking. "I asked you to come," I said. "I asked all of you." My mother's mouth tightened. It never felt welcoming. I looked at her then, really looked. This woman who had stayed away because she could not bear to watch her mother fade was now telling herself I had kept her out, not because it made sense, because it saved her from herself. Tessa joined us a minute later. Of course she did. She always sensed when a story needed managing. "Mom is just saying there were better ways to handle it," she said. I laughed once. It came out wrong. "Better ways to handle bathing a dying woman alone?" Tessa's face went cold. "There it is," she said. The martyr speech. That was when something inside me stopped trying. I didn't scream. I didn't throw coffee. I didn't tell the room what they had done. I set my untouched plate on the table and said, "I'm done." My mother blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done explaining love to people who only recognize it when it flatters them." Then I left. 2 days later, I drove back to Oregon. I changed my number. I kept my email only because legal and medical paperwork still came through it. For 4 years, I built a quieter life. A small house with a crooked porch. A dog named Mabel who hated thunder and loved everyone except the mailman. A job back in hospice, because apparently I had become someone who could sit beside endings without running from them. I did not call my parents, they did not visit, and in that silence they built a version of me that made them comfortable. The daughter who abandoned them. The sister who created drama. The granddaughter who took over. The coward who disappeared. Then 3 weeks before the anniversary, my cousin Lena sent me the screenshots. Lena and I had been close as kids, then drifted into the polite distance adults call life. She wrote one sentence before the images. "I'm sorry. You should know what they're saying before the party." The first screenshot was the family group chat. Tessa had posted photos of the anniversary venue, a waterfront hotel in Wilmington, North Carolina, because apparently my parents' 40th anniversary had become a destination event. Gold napkins, gold flowers, gold backdrop, gold script reading 40 years of love. I stared at that phrase longer than I should have. 40 years of love. Then I scrolled. Aunt Sylvia had asked, "Is Susie coming?" My mother answered, "No, she's not invited." Then she made her choice when she walked away from this family. Then after a pause, if she shows up, Richard will handle it. Richard was my father. Below that, Tessa wrote, "Please don't worry, Mom. She probably wants attention, but she won't get it." I read the whole exchange twice. Then I set the phone down. Stood up, fed Mabel, washed her bowl, wiped the counter, and sat back down. Shock is strange. People think it looks like sobbing. Sometimes it looks like doing chores with very clean hands. I had already booked the flight because the anniversary date was the date Nana had made me repeat. I had planned to go, deliver the box, and leave before dessert. After the screenshots, I almost canceled. Not because I was afraid, because I was tired. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from realizing people are still hurting you in rooms you are not even standing in. But then I thought of Nana, not the frail version, the real one. The woman who could lift a feed sack by herself and shame a banker with one eyebrow. People listen better when they are busy being proud. So I packed one black dress, one pair of flats, the gold box, the sealed letter, and the notarized statement I still had not read past the first line. Then I flew east. The flight was miserable in the ordinary way flights are miserable. A child kicked the seat behind me. A man beside me ate a tuna sandwich with the confidence of someone who feared no God. The cabin was too cold, then too warm. The gold box stayed in my lap the whole time. A flight attendant offered to put it overhead. "No, thank you," I said. "It's not luggage." She smiled like she understood enough not to ask. By the time I reached Wilmington, the sky had turned the color of steel. The hotel sat near the water, all glass and pale stone, with palm trees moving in the wind like they were gossiping. I changed in the airport bathroom. I fixed my hair with shaking hands. Then I drove to the venue with the box on the passenger seat. When I walked into the ballroom, the first thing I saw was gold. Gold balloons, gold table runners, gold candles, gold ribbon tied around white chairs. For a second, it almost made me laugh. Nana had chosen well. The second thing I saw was my sister. Tessa spotted me from across the room and froze so briefly most people would have missed it. Then the hostess smile appeared. She glided toward me in a champagne-colored dress, one arm out like she was greeting a guest and blocking a doorway at the same time. "Susie," she said softly, "I didn't realize you were coming." That was a lie. The screenshots had made clear they had discussed the possibility. "I'm not staying," I said. "I brought something for Mom." Her eyes dropped to the box. "What is that?" "Nana's." The smile thinned. "Not here." "Yes," I said. "Here." Tessa stepped closer. "This is not the night for whatever performance you planned." I looked past her. My parents were at the head table. My mother wore a deep green dress and pearls. My father sat beside her with his hand resting on the back of her chair. People moved around them with champagne and congratulations. For 1 second I felt 9 years old again, wanting to be called over, wanting a seat, wanting my mother to see me and soften. That old want is humiliating in how long it survives. Tessa touched my arm. "Susie, leave the gift with me. I'll make sure she gets it." I almost smiled. That was Tessa's entire personality in one sentence. Give me control and trust me not to change the story. "No," her fingers tightened. "Don't embarrass Mom. I'm not the one who wrote the group chat." The blood drained from her face just enough for me to know Lena had not told her. Good, let her wonder. I removed my arm from her hand and started walking. Halfway across the room, I heard my Aunt Sylvia's voice near the bar. "That's her," she whispered loudly, the way people whisper when they want to be overheard. "That's Susie." Vanished after a leaner passed. Broke Marion's heart. A woman beside her murmured, "After everything they did?" I kept walking. That was the moment I understood something I had not fully understood before. They had not just lied because they were ashamed. They had enjoyed the usefulness of the lie. It gave them sympathy. It made my mother tragic. It made my father wounded. It made Tessa loyal. And it made me absent enough that nobody could ask me questions. At 15 feet, my mother saw me. Her smile disappeared so quickly it looked erased. My father followed her gaze. For a moment, we simply stared at each other across the gold-draped head table and 4 years of silence. Then my mother stood. "What are you doing here?" Not hello, not Susie, not my daughter. "What are you doing here?" The nearest guests went quiet. I stopped at the table. "I came to give you something from Nana." My mother's eyes flicked to the box, then away. Tessa arrived behind me, slightly breathless. "Mom, I'm handling it." My father stood. He looked older than I remembered, thinner around the mouth, but his voice still carried the old weight. "You were not invited." "I know," the words surprised him. People expect denial, they expect pleading, they expect the accused to perform innocence for the crowd. Calm makes them nervous. I set the gold box on the table between my parents' champagne glasses. "Nana asked me to give this to Mom tonight, on your 40th anniversary. I'm keeping that promise and then I'll go." My mother stared at the box. What did you do? That hurt more than I expected. Not what is it? Not is that really from her? What did you do? I did what she asked, I said. Tessa laughed softly for the room. She always does this, makes everything heavy. A few people shifted uncomfortably. My father looked around and realized, I think, that people were watching. That was when his pride made the decision for him. He leaned forward, both hands on the table. We don't want anything from the daughter who abandoned us. The sentence landed like a glass breaking. 70 people heard it. My mother closed her eyes, but she did not stop him. Tessa looked satisfied, and I felt something inside me go very still. There are moments in life when pain arrives so cleanly it almost becomes information. There it is, I thought. That is what they say when I am not in the room. I nodded once. All right, I said. Then throw it away after I leave, but open it first. My father's face hardened. No. Then he picked up the box and swept it off the table with the back of his hand. It hit the floor hard enough for the lid to come loose. Tissue spilled out. The envelope slid across the polished wood. And Nana's thin gold wedding band rolled in a slow, bright circle under the ballroom lights. Everything stopped. Not metaphorically, actually stopped. The band stopped playing mid-song. A server froze with a tray in both hands. Someone gasped. The ring rolled past my shoe and came to rest near the edge of the dance floor. Before I could move, an elderly woman in a navy dress stepped out from the nearest table. Mrs. Maeve Pollard, Nana's oldest friend. I had not known she would be there. For 4 years, Maeve had been one of the only people who came to the farmhouse. She brought soup, sat with Nana, let me sleep for an hour on the couch with my shoes still on. She had seen the pill bottles, the hospital bed, the bruises from falls, the way Nana calmed when I sang old hymns off-key. Maeve bent slowly, picked up the ring, and held it between trembling fingers. Then she looked at the inside of the band. Her face changed. Marian, she said. My mother did not answer. Maeve's voice shook, but it carried. Marian, that is your mother's wedding band. The room changed. You could feel it. A second before, I had been the dramatic daughter with a mysterious box. Now my father had thrown a dead woman's ring onto the floor in front of everyone. My mother put one hand over her mouth. My father looked at the ring as if it had betrayed him. Tessa whispered, "Oh my God," not in grief, in calculation. I crouched down and gathered the envelope, the notarized paper, the tissue. My hands did not shake. That is what I remember most clearly. My hands were steady. Maeve came to me and placed the ring in my palm like she was giving back a relic. Then she turned to my mother. I was there, she said. My mother looked at her. Maeve's voice got stronger. I was at that house, month after month. I watched Susie care for Alina when none of you could bear to come. I watched her lift her, feed her, clean her, sit up with her. I watched her give up years of her life while the rest of you sent excuses and flowers. Nobody moved. Aunt Sylvia had gone pale near the bar. Maeve pointed one thin finger toward the box in my hands. Your mother loved that girl, and your husband just threw Alina's last gift onto the floor. My father sat down, not slowly, like his knees had failed. My mother whispered my name then. Susie. It was the first time all night she had said it. I placed the ring back into the gold box, then I looked at her. Nana wanted you to have this tonight. She chose the date. She chose the room. I did not read the letter, and I did not come here to punish you. I paused, then I said the only sharp thing I allowed myself, but you don't get to throw her on the floor twice. I took the box, the envelope, and the notarized page, then I turned and walked out, no shouting, no tears, no slammed doors. The glass doors opened to a patio overlooking the dark water, and the cold air hit my face so hard I almost sobbed. Almost. Behind me, the ballroom began to murmur, then louder, then all at once like a wave breaking. I did not look back. I drove away with Nana's ring beside me and my phone buzzing in my purse before I reached the highway. Tessa called first, then my mother, then my father, then Tessa again, then a number I didn't recognize, then Aunt Sylvia. I turned the phone off. A shipping store near the airport, I bought a padded mailer. I placed Nana's sealed letter and the notarized statement inside. Not the ring, not yet. The ring would not be trusted to a mailbox after what my father had done. But the letter was my mother's, and Nana had wanted her to read it after the public pride had cracked. So I mailed it to my parents' house in Utah. Then I took the first flight back to Portland. I slept for 11 hours when I got home. Mabel slept against my knees like she was holding me down. 2 days passed, then 3. On the 4th morning, my mother called 46 times. I counted later. 46 missed calls. My father left one voicemail. It was 12 seconds long. Susie, he said, and then there was silence for so long I thought the message had ended. Finally, he whispered, I am sorry. That was it, not enough, but different. That afternoon, Lena texted again. The letter arrived. Then, your mom read it. Then, Tessa came over and your mom made her sit down. Then, an hour later, I think everything is different now. I didn't answer because I didn't know what different meant. Later, my mother told me what happened. The mail arrived at 11:20 in the morning. She recognized Nana's handwriting immediately and had to sit down before she opened it. The letter was 3 pages. Nana had written it during one of her clear afternoons, with Maeve and a mobile notary present because apparently my grandmother understood her children better than they understood themselves. My mother said the first page was gentle. That was the part that made it worse. Nana wrote that she understood fear. She understood that watching a parent disappear while still breathing was a terror some people could not face. She wrote that she forgave my mother for staying away more than she came. She forgave my father for pretending practical decisions were moral ones. She forgave Tessa for wanting clean answers because Tessa had always hated mess. Then, the second page changed. Nana wrote that forgiveness was not permission to rewrite the truth. She wrote that I had not isolated her, that I had honored her signed decision to remain at home, that I had asked for help repeatedly, that every visit, call, appointment, bill, prescription, bath, night terror, and final breath had been carried mainly by me. She wrote, Susie did not abandon this family. This family abandoned the room where the work was happening. My mother said she had to stop reading there. Tessa arrived 20 minutes later because my mother had called her in a panic. She walked into the kitchen ready to manage the situation. My mother handed her the letter. Tessa read it standing by the sink. By the bottom of page 2, she sat down. The third page explained the anniversary. Nana wrote that 40 years of marriage was not proved by a ballroom, a cake, or a toast. It was proved by what people did when love stopped being flattering. She wanted my mother to receive the ring on that date because a wedding band was supposed to remind a person that promises mattered most when they became inconvenient. And then Nana wrote the line my mother said broke her completely. If Susie brings you this ring, understand what it cost her to keep one more promise to a family that punished her for keeping all the others. My father read the letter on the back porch. He did not speak for almost an hour. Then he went into the barn, pulled out the truck, and told my mother to pack a bag. They left Logan before dawn the next morning. 14 hours. Across Utah, Idaho, and Oregon. No flight, no easy arrival. My mother later said she could not stand the thought of taking the comfortable way after I had taken the hard one for years. I do not know if that was noble or dramatic. Maybe both. When they knocked on my door, the sun was low and gold across my porch. Mabel barked like an alarm system with fur. I opened the door and found my parents standing there looking smaller than I had ever seen them. My mother held the gold box in both hands. My father stood half a step behind her, no table to lean on, no audience to perform for, no daughter to handle. Just my porch, my house, my terms. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then I said, "You drove here." My mother nodded. 14 hours, she whispered. I looked at my father. That is the first time either of you crossed state lines for me. He flinched. Good, some truth should sting on arrival. My mother held out the box. I don't deserve this. No, I said, you don't. Her face crumpled. I let the silence sit. Then I took the box, opened it, and removed Nana's ring. It looked so small in my palm, too small to have survived so much damage. I placed it in my mother's hand. But Nana wanted you to have it. I won't punish her wishes because of your shame. My mother began to cry then, not the pretty crying she did at funerals, the ugly kind. The kind that bends the body. I stepped back from the door. You can come in, I said, but we are not fixing this in one conversation because you are tired. My father nodded. I know. No, I said, you don't, but you can start learning. We sat on the porch because I did not want that conversation inside my house yet. My house was mine. My peace had rules. My mother apologized first, badly, then better. Then she stopped trying to make it beautiful and told the truth. She said she stayed away because she was afraid. She said every time I asked her to come, she heard accusation even when I was only asking for help. She said letting Tessa call me controlling was easier than admitting she had left her own mother to a daughter already drowning. My father did not say much at first. Then near dark he said, I called you abandoned because I could not bear the word I needed for myself. I looked at him. What word? He swallowed. Coward. That was the first honest thing my father had given me in years. I did not comfort him. That may sound cruel, it wasn't. Comfort had been my assigned family role for too long. That night I let him sit with the word. Before they left, I gave them conditions, not requests. Conditions. First, they would correct the story, not vaguely, not mistakes were made. They would tell everyone they had lied, whether intentionally or through cowardice, about what happened during Nana's illness. Second, my mother would call Aunt Sylvia before the week ended and say, in plain words, that I did not abandon the family. Third, Tessa would stop using me as the villain in her version of the story, or I would send the notarized statement and screenshots to every cousin myself. Fourth, no one would show up at my house again without asking. My father nodded after every condition. My mother cried through most of them. Then she said, "What about forgiveness?" I looked at the ring on her finger. "Forgiveness is not the door," I said. "It is the house you build after you stop burning mine down." She closed her eyes. "I understand." Maybe she did. Maybe she only understood enough for that night, but it was a start. The corrections began 3 days later. My mother called Aunt Sylvia while I was on speaker because I asked to hear it. Her voice shook, but she said it. "Susie did not abandon us. We abandoned what she was carrying. I let people believe something that was not true because I was ashamed." Aunt Sylvia tried to soften it. "Oh, Marian, families are complicated." "No," my mother said, "this was not complicated, it was wrong." That mattered more than I expected. Tessa took longer. Of course she did. She sent me a text first, "I'm sorry for how things happened." I stared at it, then replied, "That is not an apology, that is weather." 3 hours later, she sent a longer one. It was still polished, still careful, still Tessa, but buried inside it was one sentence I believed. "I needed you to be wrong because if you were right, I had to look at what I chose not to do." I did not forgive her, but I kept the message. Sometimes keeping the truth is enough for one day. The anniversary video never got posted. Tessa canceled the photographer's highlight reel, but people had already seen what happened. Maeve Pollard made sure of that. By the end of the month, half the family knew my father had thrown Nana's ring on the floor. The other half knew my mother had publicly corrected the lie. Aunt Sylvia stopped telling the story at church. My father wrote me a letter in his own handwriting. 6 pages, no excuses. I read it once, folded it, and put it in a drawer. "I have not answered yet. That is not revenge. That is pace." My mother wears Nana's ring now. She also started volunteering twice a month at a hospice center near Logan. The first time she told me, I almost said something sharp. Something like, "a little late." But I didn't, not because she didn't deserve it, because I am trying not to become a person who only knows how to wound accurately. So I said, "I hope you show up." She said, "I'm learning." And maybe that is the most honest ending a family like mine can have. Not everyone gets punished in dramatic ways. Not every villain loses money, a house, or a courtroom battle. Sometimes the consequence is that the story they survived on stops working. Sometimes the punishment is walking into every room knowing the people there have heard the truth. Sometimes revenge is not destruction. Sometimes it is documentation. A witness statement, a sealed letter, a wedding band on a ballroom floor, a dead woman's handwriting calmly saying what the living were too ashamed to admit. I still live in Portland. I still sit with dying people. I still know how to hold a hand without needing anyone to applaud. But I no longer confuse silence with peace. Silence can protect you. It can also become the place where cowards rewrite your name. So now, when people ask what happened with my family, I tell the truth simply. I cared for my grandmother. They stayed away. Then they called me the one who abandoned them. And on my parents' 40th anniversary, Nana came back in a gold box and corrected the record herself. That is my story. One promise kept. One ring thrown onto a floor. One letter my mother could not unread. And 14 hours of road that proved showing up late is not the same as showing up never. I have not forgiven everything. But I am no longer carrying the lie, and for now, that is enough.